Chapter 22 of Life in a Thousand Worlds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Life in a Thousand Worlds by William Shuler Harris. Chapter 22. Heaven. After my ambition to visit 1,000 worlds had been realized and I was darting toward the confines of our own little solar system, instinctively I looked out once more over the vast stretches of space. All around me, at amazing distances, loomed up the millions of spheres which I had not visited by reason of my limited time. I felt like someone who, after gaining his first $1,000, has a wild craving to accumulate 10 or 100,000 more. Still, I scanned the heavens while deeper longings pervaded my soul. While in this mood, the most unusual vision flashed upon my eyes. Suddenly, I forgot whither I was going, and in wild astonishment, I drank in the first view of heaven. Inwardly, I marveled that I had not seen at least a part of it before. Heaven is fashioned on a transcendently large scale. It is not a single sphere, but a universal chain of vast and luminous star groups scattered harmoniously throughout the infinite regions of space, so that a part of it lies suspended preciously near to our own solar system. Heaven is more real and substantial than the suns and planets of the universe, although not one of its numberless parts can be detected by the human eye or discerned through a telescope. These luminous orbs that constitute heaven control the movements of the planets, suns, and systems which we call material. They are whiter than snow and shine with a luster not dazzling, but restful to the eye capable of seeing them. How this glimpse put to naught all my former crude conceptions of heaven, and if I found myself unable to describe the wonders of many a dark world which I have visited, how much less could I portray the vastly superior beauties of heaven, which are so far beyond the glory of dark, rugged worlds, that I felt an inexpressible desire to take up my abode there at once, and to remain forever. Inwardly I shouted for joy as this new light illumined my face, and I loathed to think of proceeding on my journey to any sin-cursed world of the universe, for the ties of kinship, friendship, and earthship all vanished at the sight of such resplendent spheres. The greatness of heaven. There is no language to be employed that can fitly describe the parts of heaven I saw, and I know that the greater glory was curtained from my view. But the size of the lustrous orbs is not equaled by the large material suns that blaze in the depths of immensity. Heaven's diamond splendor extended as far as my unassisted eyes could reach, and according to the way it appeared, it must extend without limit. It would require 100 millions of years for a child of God to take one excursion trip to the physical worlds of our universe. Then, there are millions of such universes. I know of no better name to use, each one occupying its own immense stretches of space. These universes average about 1,600 millions of worlds each. Heaven is infinitely greater than this whole material fabric, so that if a spirit is inclined to travel, he will need all eternity to study the works of God as displayed in the glorious abodes of heaven and in the changing aspects of created worlds. Let us give a deeper meaning to the stanza of the poet by substituting million for thousand. When I've been there 10 million years, bright shining as the sun, I've no less days to sing God's praise than when I first begun. Compared with this life more vast, does it not appear that our own insignificant existence on our tiny earth is as the creeping of a mere insect on the leaf of a giant oak? permanency of heaven. The only permanent or imperishable feature of our universe is the heaven part of it. The created or visible worlds are mere dark appendages of the real spheres, and are serving their parts in bringing fruit to their Maker. Sin-cursed and sinless worlds are coming to an end continually, and as rapidly are new ones flung out or old ones repeopled to serve as garden plots to bear fruit in the form of created intelligences who serve and admire God through choice. Heaven is indestructible. It has already been in existence since the morning of time. In all my journey, no angel or mortal could tell me how many cycles ago that was. But it must be said that heaven does not always present the same aspect. Mansions are built for the reception of new arrivals, or for the vast delegations from millennial worlds. The inhabitants of heaven. They come from all parts of the universe, from millions of spheres. The righteous of any world at death are suddenly transported to that part of heaven lying nearest to their world. This is the Abraham's bosom, where the spirit is happy until it takes up its abode with its own spiritualized body in a millennial reign, after which, by a decree of the final judgment, it is given its credentials to the illimitable life of all heaven. This is Paul's third heaven. Oh, what unlimited expansion! What incomprehensible principles to move at large in quest of universal truths, as seen in the 7 types of heaven's spiritual intelligences, and in the unending manifestations of God's work and love as displayed in all heaven and in all the peopled planets of space. Not one of these blessed inhabitants ever grows old or suffers fatigue. They are capable of moving with tireless energy from one part of heaven's vast domains to any other portion. Degrees of heaven. In space, there are many sinless worlds where human species are propagated, not as the result of any sexual affinities, but in a manner totally unintelligible to a finite mind. They who reach heaven from such a world cannot drink in the same kind of enjoyment as those who come up out of great tribulations from the spheres of a sin-cursed world, and who have struggled for mastery and forged their way to the sky through armies of aliens. But these creatures are perfectly contented, for they have no way of realizing the glory resulting from the victory over the world, the flesh, and the devil. Then there are degrees of glory among those who come from a sin-cursed world. Some have many treasures laid up in heaven, while others centered their affections too much upon the transitory things of time and sense. There are also various orders or degrees of glory among the 7 types of intelligences of which heaven's multitudes are composed. Some of these may be suggested to your mind when you read more of this 7-fold life. 7 types of intelligences. 1. The first class of beings is composed of those whom we comprehend as the Trinity, whose highest glory is expressed in the mediatorial personage who can be seen at will by any of heaven's hosts from any world. 2. The cherubim and seraphim, or the highest order of spirits, who have always been pure and holy. They constitute the next rank of the celestial host. 3. The third class is composed of the general host of angels, who also have been holy from eternity, and who serve as ambassadors to various points of the limitless creation. 4. The spirits of those who have risen from sinful worlds by virtue of a God-approved and God-appointed mediator. To join the ranks of this class, we who serve God are hastening. This is no low order or caste in heaven, but they who belong to it vie with higher angels and taste sweetness beyond the capacity of those who, in other respects, are our peers. The angels desire to look into the deep mystery of salvation's plan. 5. The matured and maturing spirits of those who left sinful worlds before God held them accountable for their deeds. To this class belong our children who precede us into the final abode. 6. The spirits of those who have risen from sinless worlds to take their infinitely higher degrees in this heaven life. 7. The matured and maturing spirits of those who left the sinless worlds before sense perception was duly developed. They form a distinct class of spirits and have their distinctive marks. Unity of heaven. Redemption's plan for each sinful world is somewhat similar to ours, so that there is a oneness in the whole family of the redeemed. This is one main factor that makes the bond of unity perfect and renders the fellowship of the celestial hosts absolutely without a flaw. True enough, each of the 7 classes of intelligences is a mystery and a glory to the others, but there is no friction, no jar. Each one is perfect in himself and happy in spirit. Although each one of the vast companies carries the distinctive impress and the spiritual peculiarities of his own planet, yet they are all now fashioned after the symmetry of the heaven life, and no one bears a single repellent feature, but rather each spiritual body is beautiful to the eyes of all the others, and each one breathes the same atmosphere of purity and converses in the self-same language of love. A home-like place. No feature of heaven is more beautiful than its home-like atmosphere. The soul is not chilled by the 2,000-mile cube cities or by the long, long stretches of divine masonry. God is as a real father, and all his subjects are as our blood relations. We feel it, and the inspiration of these truths takes a deep hold of heaven's vast populace. Employment. Now and then, large excursion parties visit various points of our own universe and frequently span the incredible distances in order to study the works and life of other universes. Each soul is occupied in gratifying its own master passion and lives in the delightsome fellowship of the saints. Transportation. There are no vehicles or cars of any kind. Actual wings are unknown except as used by certain birds of heaven. Spirits travel as rapidly as desired by a mere submissive connection with the universal system of power filaments, all of which center in God. More refined power than electricity is transmitted over these substantial filaments to any point of any world. The fleshly body is not sensitive to this spiritual power, but the pure soul, when free from the body, is at once sensitive to these cords of power and is carried swifter than a current of electricity to Abraham's bosom, where it is entitled forever to a free use of this perfect power without being subject to any kind of taxation. Sexual affinities of heaven. Contrary to some of my former ideas, I saw that the inhabitants of heaven are not all of one sex. The male and female are clearly distinguishable, and they bear relations to one another still more refined than was manifest in the millennial world. The most holy affinity exists between the several types of intelligences. Here, the glorious fires of love burn, never to reach a climax. Lovers have been drinking from perennial fountains for 1,000,000 years, and their ecstasies are rising still. Pure love is as endless and infinite as time and space, and its mystery is deep to these shining throngs of heaven, who look into one another's faces with untrammeled emotions. Think of falling in love with the inhabitants of other worlds and of having the capacity and right to foster 1,000 or more types of affinity, each one differing from the others. These relations are so highly refined and so gloriously developed that one must not think of reducing them by comparison to the level of the flesh life. Structural aspects of heaven. I would not attempt to describe the structural glory of heaven, for I know not where nor how to begin. Seemingly, all things are transparent even to the center of vast orbs. Magnificent cities apparently lie suspended far under the indefinite surface of the orbs composing heaven, and free passageways of fantastical design ramify throughout all the glorious undersurface regions. Architectural greatness here finds its unmatched examples. 7-mile diamond arches are commonplaces, and towers of 2,000 miles in height and 1,000 miles in diameter as the cornerstone of a city are nothing unusual, although many cities are built on a smaller plan. Nothing needs repairing and nothing is mortgaged. The wealth of unnumbered trillions is easily represented in one orb of heaven's empire. I now saw 1,000-fold more clearly than ever before the absolute folly of fixing our affections on the perishing things of the mortal life in our dark and dusty world. While my eyes were still feasting on the sublime picture before me, I began to realize that my privilege would be of short duration, as the vision was fast waning. I looked intently until the last curtain fell, and reluctantly I continued my journey toward my own little world. I now felt that, if the whole earth were my own property, I would gladly push it all aside if I could be a mere doorkeeper in one of the heavenly cities of my God. And very often since that time I have cast my longing eyes skyward, hoping to catch another glimpse of that fair scene. How I long for that restful picture, a vision of heaven once more, with its trillion orbs of beauty and its wealth of endless store. There are saints from unnumbered planets where they lived in a million ways. Now they mingle in perfect glory through the length of eternal days. There the poor are wealthy forever, for the beggar sits down with the king. The man who never knew music will vie with angels to sing. Here the hopeful student progressing, after failing does often grieve, but in heaven each lesson is perfect, no theory to blind or deceive. Here the runner in breathless struggle sees the other in touch of the goal, but heaven gives each one the laurel to be crowned while the ages roll. There they have no light of a candle, for there are no shadows of night. There the flash of unnumbered opals sparkles on in their wealth of light. In that home-like palace of heaven, where these myriad trillions are, there the Lord is the self-same Master, and love is the self-same star. End of chapter 22. Recording by Sean McGahey, DuctTapeGuy.net. End of Life in a Thousand Worlds by William Shuler Harris.